Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddhang saranam gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranam gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranam gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranam gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranam gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Yampi buddhang saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Yampi dhammang saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Yampi sanghang saranam gacchami.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Panatipata varamani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinnādāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Dinādāna varamani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Kāmesu micchāchārā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Kāmesu micchāchārā varamani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Musāvādā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Musāvādā varamani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Surameraya majjapamā daṭṭhāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Surameri majjapamāditthāna varamani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. It's time to offer all the offerings which we all have placed in front of our Buddha statues. You are at home and I'm in the temple. So let's offer all these offering to the Buddha by contemplating on the 9 great qualities of the Buddha, and then 6 great qualities of the Dhamma, and 9 another great qualities of the Sangha. Let's recite together. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Homage to the Buddha 3 times. Namo tassa bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhassa. Itipiso bhagava arahang samma sambuddhu. Vinja charana sampanno sugato lokavidu. Anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati. Sattha deva manussanang buddho bhagavati. Swakkhatu bhagavata dhammo sandittiko akaliko. Ehi passiko opanayiko pacchatang veditabbo vinyohiti. Supatipanno bhagavatu savaka sangho. Ujupatipanno bhagavatu savaka sangho. Nyayapatipanno bhagavatu savaka sangho. Samichi patipanno bhagavatu savaka sangho. Yadidang chattari purisa yugani atta purisa pungala. Esa bhagavatu savaka sangho. Ahuneyo pahuneyo dakhineyo. Anjali karaniyo anuttarang punyaketang lukassati. Offering candles. Ganasarappaditena deepena tamadangsena. Tiloka deepang sambundang pujayami tamunudang. Offering candles. Gandha sambhara yuttena dhupena hang sugandhina. Pujaye pujaniyantang puja bhajana muttamang. Offering flowers. Vanne gandhe gunopetang etang kusuma santati. Pujayami munindasya siripada saruruhe. Pujemi buddhang kusumena nena punyena mite nacha hotu mokhang. Puphang milayati yatha idam me kayu tathayati vinasa bhavang. Offering medicinal drinks and water. Adivase tuno bhante paniyang parikappitang anukampang upadaya patiganhatu muttamang adivase tuno bhante gilana pachayang imang anukampang upadaya patiganhatu muttamang adivase tuno bhante besajjang parikappitang anukampang upadaya patiganhatu veneration of all the pagodas of Buddha's relics and the Bodhi tree. Vandami chetiyang sambang sabbethani supatittitang saririka dhatu mahabuding buddhirupang sakalang sada yasya muli nisinno sabbari vijayang aka pattu sabbanyutang satta vande tang bodhipadapang. Apologizing from the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Kayena vacha chittena pamadena maya katang achayang kamami bhante bhuri panya tathagata Kayena vacha chittena pamadena maya katang achayang kamami dhamma sandittika akalika Kayena vacha chittena pamadena maya katang achayang kamami sangha supatipanna anuttara. Aspiration. Imina punya kammene mami bala samagamu satan samagamu hotu yava nibbana pantiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, now it's time for the meditation. So please keep your postures. You gotta keep your back upright, back, head, and neck upright. Two. Put your right palm on the left palm and close your eyes, please. Okay, we're going to be practicing loving kindness meditation today. In this meditation, we are starting to practice loving kindness or friendliness towards us, and then we are slowly extending the same loving kindness to other beings. May I be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to me. May no difficulties come to me. May no problems come to me. May I always meet with success. May I also have patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. May my parents, family members, teachers, relatives, enemies, and all living beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always meet with success. May they also have patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. So let's contemplate on these aspects of loving kindness meditation for a few minutes. So please continue to close your eyes and then contemplate. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, now it's time to share all the good karmas with the departed relatives and the deities. Today we have a special reason to. Your teacher Mike's grandma passed away a week ago, right? Or last week? She passed
Yeah,
away.
that's right. I think Thursday night.
Oh, just a couple days ago. So, uh, how old was she when she passed away?
He was 87,
Okay, okay,
um, which is a good long life. Apparently young by the standards of our family, but I think she was all right in the end.
okay,
But yeah, we'll share some merit with her.
okay. So let's share all the good karmas we are collecting. By meditating and taking precepts, doing the puja and sharing Dhamma on my side and on your side. So may all the good karmas we've been doing so far and will be doing in the future be shared with uh, Mike's grandma who passed away a couple of days ago. May she be happy and peaceful. Uh, May she and all the other departed relatives who passed away in the name of all of us attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Idamme nyati nang hutu sukita huntu nyatayo. Idamme nyati nang hutu sukita huntu nyatayo. Idamme nyati nang hutu sukita huntu nyatayo. May all the good karmas be shared by all the deities, devas, nagas. May they be happy and peaceful. May they also protect all of us and may they also attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Ittavata cha ammihi sambitang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabbe sattha anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya akasattha cha bhummattha deva naga mahindika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkang tulu kasasanang chirang rakkang tudesanang Chirang Rakhang Tumang Paranti. Okay, now it's time for respecting the monks. So please uh, worship the monks by reciting the stanzas. Oini, you can lead.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Silavantam, Gunavantam, Punyakirtam, Anuttara, Dullavena, Mayaladam, Buddha Buddha, Namamaham. Silavantam, Gunavantam, Punyakirtam, Anuttara, Dullavena, Mayaladam, Buddha Buddha, Namamaham. Silavantam, Gunavantam, Punyakirtam, Anuttara, Dullavena, Mayaladam, Buddha Buddha, Namamaham.
Okay, let's move on to the veneration of parents. So please approach your parents in the meantime. Mother, Dasamase Ure Katva Posesi Buddhi Karanang Ayudidhang Vassa Satang Matupadang Namamahang Dasamasayak Dukbidama Hedu Amme Lekirikara Pua Ma Dedikara Amme Nivase Budunyai Buduhimi Desu Amme Obapayuga Vadimi Ma Adere Amme. Father, Buddhikaru Alingitva Chumbitva Piya Puttakang Raja Majjang Supatintang Pitupadang Namamahang Nati Berikamak Mate Nodanina Yeni Dukun Karadere Medin Ma Hedudaya Veni Honda Daruveku Win Matedun Oamini Obapayuga Bandimi Adere Pianini. Okay, please approach. Okay, let's sing the Dhamma school song. Please rise from seat. so we forgot the previous item to bless you. Bless you now. Abhivadana Selis Nichang Vadha Pachaino Chataru Dhamma Vadhanti Ayuvanno Sukham Balang Ayurarogya Sampatti Saka Sampatti Mevacha Atu Nibbana Sampatti Iminati Samichatu. Yeah. Over to you, Mike.
Okay. Thank you, Bhante. Good to see everybody. I see also everybody for the breakout room. Let's start by doing that. Let's set that up. Where are we? Breakout rooms. And we're going to put, let's see here. We should have Selah, because you're teaching that room, and we have where are we? Jonathan Delon, and there we go. That should be. There we go. Let's try that. Give it a second. It takes a little bit of time to load everything in. Okay. Looks like it's gradually working. Great. So good to see everybody. Last time I saw you was 2 weeks ago on Valentine's Day, I think it was. This time it's the end of February. We normally, I think, wouldn't you be coming up on March break pretty soon, but it got moved, right?
Yeah, it got moved to April. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure.
Right. Well, that's unfortunate. So you have to wait a little longer to get that break, but I hope that you can pace yourselves until then. Today, we are going to be talking about some kind of strange categories of beings that don't really fit into the scheme that we've been talking about. We've been discussing, the 5 sort of realms of existence, and we're going to be talking about some beings that don't quite fit into those categories very neatly. What did we talk about last time? Does anybody remember?
We were talking about the Asuras and Devas.
Yeah, the Asuras and their relationship to the Devas. The Asuras are also a kind of sort of miscellaneous category. They don't really fit neatly into the scheme of the 5. Like I said, that some other Buddhist traditions do put them in their own category. So there's a 6th category that some traditions add, and that is the Asuras. But today we're going to be talking about some beings that don't fit even into that sixfold scheme. So we're going to open up our textbooks to page 369 for starters, 369 in the textbook. If you are having trouble locating it, the textbook is right there. And you can also find it on the temple website under the teaching materials. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about miscellaneous beings. And if we get a chance, we're going to go through, we're also going to discuss yakas and perhaps 1 or 2 other of the miscellaneous beings if we have time. We may not. So we're going to try and at least get through the yakas today because they're sort of interesting and kind of fairly common. You hear about them. We've already mentioned them a few times. So we're going to try and discuss them in a little more detail today. Okay. So on page 369, Thilaka, would you start us off by reading the paragraph on miscellaneous beings?
Yeah, so it's page 369. Yeah. The tidy scheme.
Yep.
The tidy scheme of the 5 destinations of rebirth fails to account for several classes of being. We have already looked at the asuras, which are recognized by the tradition as being hard to classify. We might also note that the organizational scheme fails in many individual cases, as we have seen examples of being who are considered as minor devas or petas or yakas interchangeably. The only way to make sense of it is to recognize that the cosmos is very complicated and a messy place, and any summary can only serve as a partial explanation. We shall now consider a few more kinds of beings who fall between the classifications, beginning with the yakas.
Great, yeah. So I like that comment about the universe being a bit of a messy place. If we, I think if we're to take the idea of like rebirth and various planes of existence literally, if we take that literally, we probably shouldn't take it too strictly or tightly and think, well, these are the classic classifications of beings, and this is what it's in the textbooks and the templates and things. If we choose to believe in that literally, then we probably should have a bit of an open mind about the way it works and allow it to be a little flexible. If we don't believe in it literally, then it's probably easy for us to accept that there would be a variety of different kinds of beings that don't fit neatly into whatever scheme. There are stories, for example, in the Thai forest tradition of beings being sort of trapped between states. Like I've already mentioned, the Tibetan tradition has sort of various kinds of hells where you're like trapped inside of objects and other kind of weird things like that. And so, we should let our mind be open to the possibilities. And yakas are one of those kinds of possibilities. Naomi, on the next page, would you read the first paragraph about yakas?
The category of yaka is especially problematic in this regard. The word is sometimes used so loosely that it may be taken as simply meaning a being. The distinction between yakas and the lower level of devas and the better sort of petas are especially blurry. While this should be borne in mind when encountering the word yaka in the literature, it is also true that there is a specific race of beings known by that name, and it is the yakas, properly so called, that we will be discussing here. These are fierce and monstrous beings, often possessing great power. They are usually malevolent, but when tamed by the Buddha or one of the Arhats, they can become protectors of the Dhamma. In this capacity, an army of yakas forms the fourth lines of defense of Tavatisma against the asuras. The yakas are said to be intoxicated by battle. The yakas in general, subject to King Vesavana, one of the Katumaharajika devas and great king of the north, but some are identified as being of Mara's faction.
Faction, yeah. So faction is like a party or a group or a gang, right? So yeah, there are, in general, it says, in general, they're subject to King Vesavana, who is one of the Chatu Maharajika devas. So Chatu is 4, and Maharaja is a king. So a Raja is like a kind of a petty king or a king. A Maharaja is like a great king or a big king. So Chatu Maharajika devas are the devas of the 4 great kings. So those are the kings of the 4 directions. So it's a specific level of heaven or a specific kind of deva, which we'll get into when we talk about devas in more detail. So so they generally, most of the yakas are with him, which is good because those Chatu Maharajika devas are generally well disposed toward Buddhism, and we see a lot of their we see statuary associated with like these Chatu Maharajika devas in all kinds of like protective roles in Buddhist temples all over Asia. You see these devas protecting the Buddha and his teachings and his relics and so on. So the yakas are not necessarily evil. I wanted to make that really clear. They're just kind of scary and they're dangerous, but they're not like evil aligned necessarily. They're not like bad creatures. All right. Okay, Ovindu, why don't you read? Maybe we'll skip that next paragraph. Actually, why don't we go to the next page, 371? There's a little story there that's related. Why don't you read that story? The kind of trouble from there.
Sure, no problem. The kind of trouble that unreformed yakas could cause is well illustrated by the following episode taken from the Udyana. On a moonlit night, the elder Sariputta was sitting outdoors, deep in samadhi. Two yakas happened to be flying through the air overhead. One of the yakas, seeing the moonlight reflected on Sariputta's body, freshly shaven head, said to his companion, "It occurs to me, friend, to strike a blow on that bhikkhu's head." The other was aghast. "Do not be so, friend. That is a samana of very great potency." But the first yaka did not heed his companion's warning, and descending upon Sariputta, he struck the bhikkhu a mighty blow that could have felled a bull elephant. Immediately the yaka crying out, "I am burning," fell into the Mahaniraya. It happened that Moggallana was coming along the road just at this moment and witnessed the entire episode with his divine eye. And when Sariputta emerged from his meditation, he asked him how he felt. "I am well, friend, but I do have a slight headache." "Marvelous it is, friend Sariputta. Marvelous it is that a mighty yaka can strike a blow upon your head which would fell a bull elephant, and you only have a slight headache. Marvelous it is, friend Moggallana, that with your divine eye you can see the yakas. As for myself, I cannot not even see a Pamsupisaka."
Yeah. Pangsupisataka. Pangsupisataka is just like a little goblin. Pisacha is usually sometimes translated as goblin. Actually, some of the earliest texts from the Theravada tradition, the Pali language may have evolved from a language called Paishachi, which means goblinese, gobbledygook. It's not clear why it means that, but anyway. So this is an interesting episode, an interesting story. Sorry to make you read something so long, but it's an interesting story. First of all, because it shows that the yakas can be of different minds regarding like morality and ethics, and they can be persuaded to behave well or badly. And in this case, we have two different yakas with two different behavioral patterns. Like one is absolute, jerk, and he goes and smacks an arahant on the head, shouldn't do, and he goes to niraya for that right away, immediately. And the other one is trying to dissuade him from doing this bad behavior. So the yakas can be persuaded to do good or evil. The other thing that's interesting about it, kind of as a side note, is the difference between the two arhats here. So everybody knows Sariputta and Mahamoggallana. If you go to the you have all seen statues of them. Where have you seen statues of them?
The left hand and right hand of the Buddha.
Exactly, yeah. So they are the two chief disciples of the Buddha, and they are complementary. They're kind of like equal opposites. And in what sense are they equal opposites? They have different emphasis.
I think Mahamoggallana was able to have like supernatural powers, and then Sariputta was able to have like physical ones.
Yeah, it's that he had like great wisdom. So he was like intellectually talented, right? Like he had great intellectual prowess. He was good at explaining things very clearly, using logic and reason. He could see through the problems with clear intelligence, but he had no like supernatural powers or anything like that. But Mahamoggallana, he had this keen intuitive insight that would allow him to solve problems. And so they're very different in this respect. And so, of course, Sariputta doesn't even see the yaka come and whack him on the head. And there is some discussion. I want to put this in here. There is some debate, I think, about what makes this happen. Because obviously this is not necessary. Like if you have some kind of great psychic power, doesn't matter. It doesn't help you necessarily be free. But according to all Buddhist traditions, the Buddha himself had all of the above. He had all of the intuitive powers, and he also had great wisdom and so on. And some arhats have the one or the other, but not really both. Like some are not very good at explaining things very clearly, but they have great intuitive insight. And some are the opposite, and some have a mix of both. And there's been a lot of discussion, I think, in all the traditions about what leads to this difference, like what leads to the wisdom faculty and what leads to these kind of intuitive powers. And this has been discussed a lot in different traditions. I want to say the really old-fashioned Theravada way of viewing this is that the meditator who practices jhana, who practices like deep concentration meditation, gets the psychic powers. And those who just do pure vipassana meditation end up with the wisdom without the psychic powers. I think a lot of people dispute that because in the suttas themselves, the Buddha seems to say that the only way to be free is by practicing jhana. So, but we don't really know what that meant. So some people say now that it's by practicing deep meditation. Some people they say by like using the faculty of your imagination a lot allows the psychic powers to form. Ajahn Lee Dhammadharo used to teach that was the way that led to those powers. And other people say it's by practicing deep concentration. And some people say that you can skip all that and just do pure vipassana meditation. So this is really debated. Not everybody agrees what leads an arhat to have the powers or not. But it's an interesting conversation. It's just like a side note. I thought I'd mention that. No one's really sure why one person would have it and another would. But it doesn't make you less wise to not have it. Okay, cool. So having discussed that, we have... Oh yeah, this next story is pretty fun. Ovini, why don't you read the next paragraph about invisibility?
Sure. The invisibility of yakas may be something they can control. In one story, a yakani is clearly seen by the palace guards as she snatched the royal prince with intent of eating him. However, she developed affection for the baby when it began to suckle her breast, and she raised him as a yaka, living with him in the charnel ground and feeding on human corpse. The problem was that the boy, being actually human, was unable to conceal his form from sight like is his adopted mother, the yakani. She gave him power by feeding him a certain root. The implication was that she herself could naturally become invisible without external assistance. In the following story, we see an example of a yaka being converted to the Dhamma and even attaining stream entry.
Good. Okay, yeah, you can stop there. So yeah, the invisibility of yakas. So this is, I think, similar to a lot of supernatural beings in Buddhist mythology. The yakas can be seen by some people, like Mahamoggallana, or even people who are not arhats who just have a certain gift. Some people can see this in the mythology, and sometimes so that would be against their will. You know, like someone like Mahamoggallana could see them no matter what. But sometimes they choose to make themselves seen, and they do it on purpose. So that is also a moment where they might intersect with normal people, when they might like if they want to scare you or something, they might just appear to you and go boo or something. So in most of these cases where I think a lot of the stories where they interact with the Buddha or the arhats, they are trying to be seen. Sometimes they'll come up to them and talk to them. So like obviously they don't mind being observed in those cases. But yeah, normally most of us, I can tell you, I cannot see. I have never seen a yaka. I don't expect to ever see a yaka. They may just be mythological beings. But who knows? If you ever have a bad dream about some scary monster, you can just say, whatever, it was just a yaka. It's not a big deal. Worst thing they'll do is give me a headache. Okay, but yeah, they can. We can also see them behaving well, or like at least gaining some wisdom. And interestingly, we see that the yakas. This next story shows us why they one of the main reasons why they fall outside of this scheme of like the realms of existence as being like five, because we talked about there are five, and then the top two are the upper realms, bottom three are the lower realms, and there are strict rules about it. Well, they kind of break these rules a bit. We're going to see that in this story. Seth, why don't you read this story here?
Okay, where do you want me to start?
At one time.
Okay. At one time, the Buddha was staying at Tamkit
Tamkitmanta.
Tamkitmancha, which place was frequented by the Yaka Suchiloma. This Yaka had been a lay follower at the time of the Buddha Kassapa, but because he on one occasion entered the Dhamma hall with his body soiled from field work and laid down upon a costly rug, he was reborn as a Yaka with ugly features and hair on his body as coarse as so many needles. His name means needle hair. When Suchi Lioma's friend, the Yaka Kira, came to visit him, he remarked about the Buddha, "That one is a true samana." To which
Suchi, yeah, Suchi Loma. Loma is hair, Suchi is a needle, so Suchi Loma.
Suchiloma replied, "We shall see how much of a samana he is." And he approached the Buddha and rubbed up his body against him. When the Buddha drew away from him, Suchiloma said, Are you then afraid of me, Samana? I am not afraid, but your touch is evil. I shall ask you a question, Samana, and if you cannot answer, then I shall either overthrow your mind, split your heart asunder, or grab you by the feet and toss you into the Ganges. I do not see anyone in the world who could overthrow my mind, split my heart asunder, or toss me into the Ganges, but go ahead and ask your question and I shall answer it.
Okay, very good. Yeah. So we see Suchiloma obviously wanting to be seen by the Buddha, and he's deliberately harassing by, because he's covered in needle-like hairs. So he rubs those needle-like hairs all over the Buddha, goes, "Ooh, does that bother you? Are you bugged yet?" And then he asks for advice. He actually does ask for advice. So the initial harassment is kind of it's a poor decision to on his part, but it is kind of motivated by like the right intention here, because he is actually just trying to establish whether the Buddha is wise or not. So he's trying to bother him and see if he's bothered. Because obviously, if you're easily frustrated or bothered or grossed out, then you're not enlightened, right? So this is kind of smart, but he's going about it in a very stupid way. So he's got a good idea, but it's implemented incorrectly. So then, and of course, the Buddha says, like, your threats don't really mean anything to me. And of course, this is because the Buddha knows that he has enough merit that no one can do him that kind of harm, right? It's not that the Suchiloma is physically incapable of it. It's just that he won't end up doing it, and he won't end up doing it because of what happens next. What's next? We see that Suchiloma asked the Buddha a question on Dhamma, and the Buddha replied in verse. He made up a little poem on the spot. It was very common back then. Unsurprisingly, the Yaka's question reveals the troubled nature of his mind. He wanted to know where lust and hatred come from, and why the thoughts toss the mind around like mischievous boys toss a cow. The Buddha's answer was that these defilements arise right here, generated by oneself alone. So it's our own, we must take responsibility for our own mind. The commentary goes on to say that at the end of the Buddha's discourse, the Yaka attained the state of a sotapanna, that's a stream winner or a stream enterer. And as a result of this attainment, the needles fell off his body, and he became arrayed in deva clothes and garlands, because stream enterers do not exist in monstrous bodies. Not all Yakas apparently were as evil-minded as Suchiloma. The very next in the Samyutta Nikaya records the Buddha's encounter with the Yaka Manibhadda, who lived in a chaitya, in a stupa, and he addressed his question to the Buddha respectfully. So we can see that they're not all so rude, but they are very scary looking and monstrous. And in Suchiloma's case, he had a bunch of needles over his body. So the Yakas, first of all, are not uniform in appearance. So like they all look a little different in there. So they are each almost a category unto themselves. But also, there's another important thing about this story that shows us why the Yakas are sort of an exception. So what's that important point At least if we're to take the commentary seriously.
Okay, wait, where do you want me to start?
No. I'm asking you all to think over the story there that happened, and what happened in that story that's really weird. So obviously, a yaka is not he's not in the higher realms, right? He's not a human or a deva. Because normally we say like, what are the higher realms? Humans and devas. Anything lower than that is unfortunate. We consider that unfortunate, right? It's unfortunate to be an animal or a peta or a hell being, right? So why? So is a yaka in what category is a yaka? Like, are they in the higher realms or in the lower realms? Like traditionally, we say that you can attain nibbana from the higher realms and not from the lower realms. But what's weird about this story? With the yaka?
He achieved Sodapana.
Yeah. He achieved that as a yaka directly, which normally, so we would say that humans and devas can achieve any of the stages. So there's 4 stages, right? Anybody remember what they are? If you can remember the Pali or the English or whatever, it doesn't matter. What are the 4 stages of awakening traditionally? How are they reckoned? You can shout them out, any order, just shout them out. So there's the 4 kinds of Aryapokala and the 8 or 8 kinds as well. We say it, we recite this actually every time we do a puja. When we do the homage to the 3 jewels, we do the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. When we get to the Sangha, what is the somebody recite it for me? What is the homage to the Sangha? How does that go? Supatipanno. Okay, and then what happens? And then what happens when you get to the end of that? What's at the end?
Is it like Ujjapatipanno?
Yeah. And then Samiji Patipanna, and then what comes after all those? Yeah, so there's the 8 kinds of people, right? There's the people who are what are the 8 kinds of people? There's the people who are walking the path of the stream enter and who have achieved the fruit of the stream enter. The people who are walking the path of the once returner, who have achieved the fruit of the once returner. Walking the path of the non-returner, who have achieved the fruit of the non-returner. People who are walking the path of the arhat, who have achieved the fruit of the arhat. That's what those 8 kinds of people are that are listed there. So usually when we think of that verse, we're thinking those are the monks, but they're not necessarily all monks. Most of them probably are, but there are probably a handful that are not monks. So up to let's see, 6 of those 8 could be not necessarily monks, and not necessarily human as well. So that's an important thing to remember. So the first stage is the stream winner. It's like you've gotten on the boat, you've gotten on a raft that's in a stream, and the stream will just flow into the ocean. You just have to sit on that boat and just go all the way to the end, right? So stream entry is considered very important. We usually talk about stream entry, and we talk about arhats and we talk about stream enters, and then the middle 2 are kind of overlooked or sort of forgotten a lot in discussion. The stream entry is very important because it means that from that point, you have glimpsed nibbana, you have tasted it once, and you are on the way for sure. You can't ever go back. It's guaranteed because you're in the stream that flows into the ocean. The current's just going that way now. So that moment is considered extremely important. It makes you an Aryapogala, a noble person. And in his case, in the case of Suchiloma, he did that as a yaka directly. So normally we hear stories of humans or maybe devas doing that, but we don't ever hear of beings in the lower realms doing it. It doesn't happen for petas. It doesn't happen for hell beings. Never happens for animals, but it happens for a yaka, at least in this one case. So it's kind of interesting, I think, because it shows that the yakas are not really in the higher realms or the lower realms. They're this weird miscellaneous category on their own. They can sit in both, kind of, and they have the potential for awakening. So in that sense, they're kind of like devas, but they're also kind of like petas because their existence is sort of miserable and they're gross and they're angry all the time. So that I think is what's very, very interesting about this story. Let's see.
Mike, did it only happen once? Like the incident that you were talking about?
This particular case is like, yeah, this is one story. If we take seriously the idea that samsara is without beginning, though, the math of it would tell us that infinite yakas have become noble persons. If you just like, if it's possible in this age with this historical Buddha, then it's possible in any age, and therefore over infinite Buddha ages, then there have been infinite yakas who've done this. That's just sort of a mathematical consequence of it, but I don't know of any other stories that talk about it. No. But yeah, again, this is just a story. Maybe it's not like literally true, but it's sort of I think it's interesting because it allows us to kind of look at these things in not such hard categories as we have been doing up to this point. We look at it in very cut and dried rules, like, okay, well, if you die and you have done you've done good merit and stuff, then you can become a human again, or maybe a deva, and then you still have a chance. But otherwise, you're hooped and you can't achieve liberation in this lifetime, or in that lifetime, or whatever, and you'll just have to get lucky. But that's not necessarily the case. I think the yakas show that there are exceptions, and I think that's important because we should never fall into the view that our current position is futile. We should never think like, oh, I can't right now. There's no way. Like, oh, I'm a layman. A layman can't achieve liberation. Or some people think, oh, I'm living in this kind of late age and the Dhamma is deteriorated and it's just not possible anymore. I think whatever your situation or circumstance, you should always have the attitude that you can do it, that you can make progress, that you can, maybe you don't have to have the attitude that like, I can become an arhat tomorrow, but like, just feel like I can still go farther. I can practice, I can improve. And that attitude is very healthy. Whether or not it's true, I think it doesn't matter. It's like, because that is a helpful attitude, and that will take you very far. So the story of the yaka here can inspire us in that respect. Okay, let's see if we can read a little bit more about that. But the yakas, if there's another good story in here. I think that's a little bit too in-depth. There's a lot about a specific yaka in here that I don't want to get too much into because the author treats it in a lot of detail, and he examines the mythology of this character, and that's just not it's too much. We don't have time to go into it. It's interesting, but I don't think we have time to cover it. There's one page. No. It's near the end. I just wanted to get to the summary. Because this chapter is extremely long. There we go. All right, let's go to the page 392. And on page 392, Dilaka, would you read the first paragraph in conclusion? Oh, actually, no, not that one. Read the one after that. When we consider all the evidence.
Got it. When we consider all the evidence, the yakas appear to be a class of beings that stands somewhere between the coarse physicality of humanity and the subtler nature of devas. There are a wide spectrum within the classification of yakas. The coarsest sort, often called amanusya, are fierce and rough, living off human flesh, sometimes even abiding in charnel grounds. The highest sort are barely distinguishable from devas. They mostly give birth in ordinary human way and have family relations like us, but sometimes are said to arise spontaneously like devas. In some stories, like the incident with Sariputta and Moggallana, they are invisible to the ordinary human sense, again like the devas, and yet they are coarsely physical enough to subsist on the flesh of corpse or even filth. A passage in the Mirinda Panya illustrates the ambiguity nicely. King Milinde asked the bhikkhu Nagasena if there are indeed such things as yakas in the world, and if they are born and die like us. When he is told that indeed they are, he further inquires why we do not see their corpse. The answer is that we do. Their corpse take the form of worms, insects, birds, and beasts after death.
Okay, great. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. The idea that the yucca is a sort of a midway being, like they have in this sense, they're a little bit like Yama, like King Yama, in the sense that he's sort of like he experiences a Peta-like existence half the time and a Deva-like existence the other half. But the Yakas are kind of like their whole experience is just a mix of these two things. So in that sense, they're a little bit like humans. Our experience is pervaded by both suffering and pleasure at the same time. And it's not necessarily like one day is totally fantastic, Deva-like, and the next is awful. I mean, sometimes it is, but usually it's like a mixture of both going on at the same time. So the yuccas are actually fairly similar to us in a lot of respects like that. So yeah, okay. I think that's just like an interesting overview of the yucca, especially because they figure in mythology a lot because of their sort of human-like characteristics and their diversity of behavior. They make great characters in folklore and fables and stories. So they appear a lot in all kinds of folklore. So that makes them a lot of fun. Any questions or comments or things you want to share? You do know any good stories about yucca, so you can think about that over the break and you can share them maybe afterward. Otherwise, I think we'll come back at let's call it at 3:10. We'll come back at 3:10, and then we'll do a short meditation before our discussion. All right, so see you all in just about 10-12 minutes.
See you in 10 minutes.
Okay, everybody, let me know when you're back. When everyone's back, we'll do a short meditation.
We're back.
Great.
I might come back too.
Okay, good. So for about 10 minutes, we'll just do a meditation. You can meditate however you like this time. I'm not going to throw you more curveballs. Just find a way to relax, but just don't fall asleep. Just strike that balance. Okay, and in your mind, you can make any dedication you want to do. You can wish for happiness, success, for the swift achievement of nibbana, whatever you want to dedicate your practice toward. Okay, so now I guess we get a little time. We can chat about stuff. How is your Dhamma practice going? How's your meditation? You want to talk about yuccas, or if you want to talk about your home life, school, anything. Floor is open. What's up?
Yeah, my school's pretty good. It's good. It's really good. I was thinking about this weekend on the project for like the final project you were talking about. I was thinking of some ideas, interpreting like some of my skills and trying to do something in combination with what we've learned
Okay. Yeah, that sounds
this last couple of weeks. Just thinking of some ideas.
fantastic. I'm glad to know that you're thinking ahead on that. Is there, I mean, you don't have to share your thoughts now if you want to keep it secret while you're still working on it, that's fine. I guess I don't know if I have a date on the draft schedule for a day when we would say submit that. I think we can talk with Bhante Chandima about that and see if he thinks there would be a good day for us to present or hand in the projects or something like that. We'll talk about that later. But you all seem to be pretty strongly in favor of the idea of a kind of creative project, right? Like some kind of. I mean, I think I'm happy about to have us do anything you want, any kind of format. So it could be painting, drawing, it could be poetry, it could be a short story, whatever takes your fancy. I'm happy to have it be done in whatever way that plays to your strengths. I think that's fine. I guess the point of it is mostly just to think about these different things and to just to contemplate them and see what way of understanding them works for us, so that we could think, you could think about it as being literally true, as being a kind of metaphor or allegory for our experience here and now. And you could maybe blending these two ideas together and just in what way can we apply these ideas so that they help us here in this life. So I think that any activity that gets you engaged with that is good. So I'm happy to have you do it in whatever format you prefer. Does anybody have some particular way they would like to present it? Does anybody already decided, like, I'm going to do it this way, I'm going to do a story, or I'm going to write a song, or I don't know, what are you guys thinking of?
The three ideas I like are a story, a drawing, or a song.
Okay. Yeah, Uvinya, I know you're somewhat musically inclined, right? You have some musical talent. Okay, that's very cool. That's really good. I think that would be a fun way to do it. I think drawings or painting or some kind of like visual form is really appealing too, because you have a lot of stuff to work with all this. You could there's lots of traditional artwork that depicts, like, there's famous paintings and stuff of the entire wheel of samsara. I'm sure you've seen a few of those where you have this all the states of existence depicted in one thing. You don't necessarily have to go that big, but there's lots of good stuff that could inspire you if you were interested in like doing a drawing or something. And there's lots of material in the suttas themselves or the Jataka stories if you're looking for inspiration for something to write. So there's lots of material there to work with already. But yeah, I don't know what other ways would there be. You could do a diorama. That's what I never liked when I was in school. I am not a very visual person, so I whenever there was like some project in school, like, oh, make a poster of this, my teachers would say that. I always hated it. I could never stand it. Or diorama, forget it. Just let me write something down, please. I'm okay with words, but when it comes to visual projects, I just can't. I'm no good. But if you are, that's great. I encourage you to do it. Find your own strength and play to it. Yeah. Any questions about or thoughts about the yuccas that we talked about today, or yeah, anything related to meditation that is I don't know that's been on your mind or anything like that? Have you been able? I know a lot of people have been struggling in general with meditation during the pandemic because when you're confined to your home, I actually don't really have so much of this because I still have to go into my office sometimes. So I'm not strictly in my house all the time. But a lot of people have this, you're in your house day in, day out, and a lot of people get a little stir crazy, get some cabin fever, and they find it hard to practice meditation. So I don't know if any of you are having that difficulty right now, or if it would be any different. I don't know. Some people don't have a regular meditation practice anyway. I don't know. Are any of you suffering from cabin fever? Is it making it hard to practice meditation? Are you feeling that way?
I have a similar something like you, but Mike. But it's like I find it harder to meditate at home. Like I find it very easy to meditate at the Pansala. I find it's more calming and soothing than at home for some reason.
I think that, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I've definitely I definitely know some other people who've said similar things to me. I think I probably feel the same way. Uh, I think it just helps it when you go somewhere else, you don't have all these distractions right there. Maybe it's like your phone or like your family, and they're always badgering you or something, and that can be distracting. Or maybe it's just the fact that you have entertainment there for you at like the click of a button, and you could go play some games or watch TV, and it's like right there. It's very tempting. So it maybe makes it hard to set aside some disciplined time to say, okay, this is the time I'm going to practice meditation. But yeah, there's a lot of factors I think about being at home that make it more difficult to practice the meditation, which is why there are there are so many mechanisms in place in Buddhist traditions to like give us a good environment. One is like becoming a monk or a nun. That is obviously like the ultimate good environment. That's what it's supposed to be, is creating a space for you where you have all these rules that protect you from all those distractions and allow you to just focus on your practice. Or these days we have, especially thanks to the Burmese Vipassana movement, we have all these like meditation centers, and that's really common. You have like meditation centers or like retreat centers where you can go and like immerse yourself in meditation practice with no distraction for that time. So those are very good too. I think that's really cool. I have done not like the big meditation centers per se, but I've gone to like little retreats and hermitages and temples before. And I think it does help a lot to just cut out the distractions. If you go somewhere where there's no signal, it's hard to be distracted. You're just like alone in the woods, then there's nothing really else to do. You just have to just sit there and meditate. There's nothing else you could bother to distract yourself with. So that does help. Yeah.
For me, I don't have many distractions online, except usually my online book, I don't know, but I don't really watch many things or do games and stuff. Usually when I'm doing meditation, I just do it as concentration. Like every night we do like 15 minutes of meditation, me and my brother and my mom. But when I do meditation, like I just, for example, when I'm practicing my singing, I just think singing, and that's a meditation. When I'm practicing dancing, just dancing, and yeah.
That's good. That's good too. Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, like like I think I might have mentioned before, there are entire approaches to meditation which just focus on that. The way you meditate is just whatever you're doing, you just notice that thing. And if you're sitting formally in meditation, you just notice that you're sitting in meditation, and there's nothing else to do than that. So yeah, there's a lot of like Zen practice that focuses on that as well, but also like Burmese style, which is Theravada, right? So that focuses on just like noticing what you're doing, even if it's nothing at all. And that's I think that's perfectly valid. A lot of people have experienced great benefits from that kind of practice. So that's very good. That's very good.
Hi, I also have a question. Of course, I wouldn't do this, but can humans kill Yaku?
That's a really good question. I mean, I've never heard of it happening in the mythology. I've never heard of that occurring, uh, because they're sort of like they don't usually present themselves unless they are in a position of safety and security, right? They don't like to show themselves unless they're confident. That's why they have this like on and off button for their invisibility and stuff. But I want to say that killing or fighting invisible beings probably falls into the category of like magic practices, and there are a lot of in the West, a lot of the time we just completely forget that these things exist. That like Buddhist tradition, we emphasize, and we do try to do this at the temple here. We talk about the practices that will benefit us here and now, and the way we can cultivate our own minds to benefit ourselves and other beings and bring peace to everyone. And that doesn't require that you even believe in other beings literally, that are like invisible and so on. That you don't need to believe in that, and that is the core of the Buddhist teachings. But and so in the West we focus on that, and I think that's good because that is the core of what the Buddha was teaching. But at the same time, in most Buddhist cultures in Asia, people did believe these things were literally true. People did believe that yakas literally existed, and devas and so on. And in those cultures, people would come up with all kinds of methods for interacting with these beings, usually to gain their favor or to drive them away or punish them or destroy them. So you would have like there are Buddhist exorcists in a lot of like Southeast Asia who like get rid of ghosts, for example. Or perhaps maybe drive away yakas or something like that. That would fall into this category of kind of like magical or esoteric practices. I am not going to say that those are not Buddhist. I think a lot of Westerners, when we kind of like import Buddhism, and I think we're in this odd position, especially since you're Sri Lankan, but you're growing up in Canada. So you're kind of Western, but also not Western. So you're kind of straddling this line, right? But in the West, we forget that these practices exist, and some people even say they're not really Buddhist practices. But I think that's not quite fair to say that these people who practice these kind of magical rituals and things are not really Buddhist. I think that's not fair because they do believe in the Buddhist teachings and they believe in them literally and that they are true. And it's just that those magical rituals and practices for, say, like driving away evil spirits or inviting the blessings of devas or what have you, these are directed usually at more short-term goals, like trying to make sure everybody's happy, like blessing a house or like driving away evil spirits from a house. That's a practice that's pretty common. And it is okay, like from the Buddhist perspective, making sure that the people who live in a house are happy and healthy and blessed, that is in line with Buddhist practice. That's okay. The ultimate objective of Buddhism is nibbana and total liberation. But in the meantime, also living a happy, healthy, safe life is completely in accord with the Buddhist teachings. So these kind of magical rituals for exorcising ghosts or driving away spirits and things are, I think they're okay. I would say they are not bad things. And if someone believes that they are effective and they want to employ them to benefit other beings, I think that's totally fine. But bearing in mind, though, that of course that when you're doing this, you should do it in a way that benefits everybody involved, even the spirits or whatever that you might be dealing with, because then it's truly a Buddhist practice. So that you should do it without harming anybody. It's a little bit like, I guess, being like a spirit doctor or something like that. So I've known and heard of people who do these kind of practices. I don't know much about them myself, but I think they do exist. And I think they are legitimately Buddhist practices. And if you're interested in them, you can definitely look into them. I think there are probably lots of books on the subject. I think I have a couple as well that kind of get into the very basic, shallow overview from a kind of academic perspective. if we ever get a chance to, I could maybe like loan them to the temple, put them in the library there, or donate them if you want to read them. But it's an interesting subject. It really is, and one that I wish I knew a bit more about. But yeah, it's a very rich tradition of spirit wrangling, I guess, in Buddhism.
Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
I also have like kind of a funny story or something like that. There's an expression in Sinhalese for when you're like really hungry. It's called Matayake Kandabarini, which translates to "I'm so hungry I could eat a yaka." That came from like a funny story where there was like once a farmer and he was coming home and there was a yaka who was hiding under his bed, and the yaka wanted to eat the farmer. But when the farmer went to his wife, he told his wife that he was so hungry that he could eat a yaka. And then the yaka got really scared. He came out and then he like turned off his invisibility. And then he prayed to the farmer that he would like work for him for the rest of his life if the farmer wouldn't eat him. So then after that, the farmer grew really rich. And then that expression just came up.
I like that story. That's funny. I've never heard that before. I like that. Sometimes an offhand comment can will get us will give us great things. But that's pretty
now
good.
Like I could eat a yaka is kind of like an expression for
Just being super hungry.
whenever someone's really hungry.
I mean, it's like it's pretty sounds pretty similar to I think there's an English expression like "I'm so hungry I could eat a horse" or something, but that one is better actually. the Sinhalese version is more funny. I like it. Yeah, I actually though that does remind me that kind of like like the idea of like the farmer using the yucca to do his farm work. That's actually, I guess, like a classic example. I mean, this is obviously an accident. That's why the story's funny. But I think that there's a lot of people in like Asia, in like traditionally like Buddhist societies who actually try to do that kind of thing on purpose. They're like, oh well, if there are like spirits living in the land here, I'm going to do magical ritual to like make them benefit me or like work for me or like bring me good luck and fortune and stuff. And that's pretty common in like folk traditions and things everywhere in the world. It's not specifically Buddhist, but yeah, I think that's a common application of those kind of rituals and things, which is I don't know, it's kind of funny, the idea that you could have like a bunch of like strange supernatural beings doing your chores. The yuccas actually are also really popular kind of in Chinese mythology as well. And I think there's lots of sayings, I can't think of any specific ones off the top of my head, but there's also lots of like they work their way into the popular culture in China too. And the word for them is the same. It's just yecha, which literally means night fork, but it's just a translation of the sound, right? So yeah, they're also called yakshas in Chinese, and they have lots of myths and stories. I think I read a good one once about a guy, like a shipwreck sailors type story. It was a classical Chinese fairy tale about this shipwrecked sailor who landed on an island of yuccas, and it was, I think he was stranded there so long that he actually married one of the yucca women, and they had children, and he learned the yucca language, and his children grew up as like half yuccas. And then finally one day a ship came by and he took it back home. And I think there was something with it. I don't remember how it ended, but there was like his kids came back to like find him, and all the villagers in China were scared because obviously they're like monster children. But yeah, I can't remember. I think it had a happy end. But anyway, there was some fairy tale like that in Chinese mythology as well. Just like hungry ghosts. I feel like the kind of scarier creatures are more popular. Like they get kind of spread into the pop culture more. I don't hear so many. Well, I guess there are probably lots of Chinese stories about devas as well. But they're all like, they had their own indigenous devas, right? Like every culture has their gods. And so they just kind of said, well, all our gods are just Buddhist devas, right? But then they also brought in these Buddhist ideas of the yuccas and King Yamas in Chinese mythology too a lot. So you'll see that kind of stuff there, if you're ever interested. I think at one time had an encounter with a Taiwanese farmer on a train. There was, speaking of Buddhism in China, and so this Taiwanese farmer on a train, he saw me and he decided to strike up a conversation. And it was a really odd and direct conversation. He just saw me, he looked me up and down, and he asked me, "What religion are you?" Which is a really direct way to start a conversation. So I told him I was a Buddhist, and he told me no. He said, "No, you're not." I was like, "What do you mean I'm not?" And he said, "There are no Buddhists in your country." So I thought it was a weird interaction because I was like, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of us. I definitely know some others. He didn't even ask me what country I was from before he said that. But yeah, that's one odd memory I have of Buddhism in East Asia. Yeah, he just didn't believe me. He just didn't believe that it was possible. But yeah, I do recommend traveling to, if you get a chance, traveling Taiwan. It's pretty cool. There's lots of there's a whole other universe of Buddhism in East Asia that's worth exploring as well. I mean, it shares a common heritage, but they have some different perspectives on things. Have you ever been, any of you guys ever been to like a Chinese Buddhist temple before?
I think we all went on a trip one time, like with the past Hamadru. I think we went to Chinese temple, right? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did.
Where was it?
I don't know. We were pretty young, but I remember it, but like I don't remember where it was.
I remember it was kind of up north, though. I feel like it was up north.
Oh, like on the Quebec side of the river?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Naomi, I remember, was there. I don't know about Ovido Novini or Seth. I'm not sure. But
Yeah,
I remember.
I don't think we went.
I think this was like a long time ago.
Yeah. But it was like in the middle of a forest, though. And it was
Yeah, I remember we went, but I'm not sure if that was another place.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But it was inside of like a forest, and it was really sick.
Cool. All right. I think I might know. I've never been there, but I think there's I've heard people tell me that there's like a Vietnamese or like an East Asian temple somewhere in Gatineau or something, and I haven't had a chance to go, but maybe that's the same one. But yeah, it does sound nice. There are some really big ones, obviously in where I grew up in Vancouver. There are a lot of really big Chinese temples. And they're very, I don't know, they're really nice. I like visiting. They have a lot, of course, in East Asia. They kept the tradition of the nuns, so they have fully ordained nuns. And of course, in the Buddhist time there were nuns, but they just stopped ordaining them in like Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia, and they never went to Tibet. But in East Asia they still do, and they're always really nice. They'll feed you. They'll feed you lots of food if you go and visit them. So that's always nice. And they kind of bring a lot of elements of Chinese culture and like Chinese festivals and stuff into their routine, which is always fun to see. So it's yeah, worth visiting. When lockdown's over, maybe at some point you can go visit. If you have a chance someday, go visit Taiwan. I recommend it because yeah, they have a different kind of take on the Buddhist tradition over there, and they have delicious food in Taiwan. So. Yeah, I don't know. Anything else you want to talk about? Yakas or meditation or anything like that? Are you guys what grade are you guys in? Are you guys the older of you guys? I guess Naomi, Dilika, and Ovindu, you're probably the oldest, yeah? What grade are you in?
I'm in grade 10.
Yeah, Ovidu's I think the oldest, and second oldest, and it's Naomi or Seth, and then
I'm in grade 6.
Oh, okay.
I'm in grade 9.
Okay, all right, yeah. I think in I was just thinking about the meditation practice and being distracted at home, and there's obviously in in Southeast Asia, there's a tradition of ordaining temporarily as a monk, which you don't see in Sri Lankan culture. It's generally considered, there's no rule about this, but it's generally considered that like when you put on the robe, you're going to try and stay in it for the rest of your life. But it's not written in the book. So in Southeast Asia, they'll often ordain for a while, like for one rains retreat or something, and then they will use that as like a meditation time to practice a meditation. But also, since the Vipassana movement started in Myanmar, there are lots of people who will like, instead of doing that, like they'll stay lay people, but they'll go for like a retreat for like an extended period, like 10 days or a month or whatever. And that's a very common thing that most people will do to like deepen their practice or to get started in their practice. So yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't recommend it if you're really young. It can be a lot of work. It's very tiring, and you have to be emotionally mature enough to handle a long period of working very hard for pretty much no benefit. That's like you're not going to feel like anything's happening. If you do an intensive retreat, you're going to be like, all right, I'm sitting here. This is just the same as yesterday. I'm just breathing in, breathing out. Nothing new is going on. But dealing with those impatience and all those things that come up, that's the benefit of the practice. So perhaps, you could maybe just think about it. I would say it might be worth trying at some point. Maybe when you guys get a little bit older, maybe toward the end of high school, you might think about going on a short retreat sometime, if you wanted to use that as a way to deepen your practice a little. It might be, I think you were probably grade 10. Maybe I would start thinking about it in a year or two. You might be like at the point where you might be emotionally mature enough that you could think about it, but maybe not quite yet. Anyway, I'll plant that seed there. And if you want to, at some point, maybe when the pandemic is over, deepen your practice or get more into the meditation, that's an option that exists, especially nowadays. And you can do that so many places, like in the West. There are all kinds of meditation centers that will offer those kind of programs. So you might want to think.
I have a question. How big are yakas compared to humans?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know. I don't know that it's actually a very standard thing. Like we talk about petas as being very large generally, but I think it's not. They're not very uniform. I think some are very large and some are small. But I think generally speaking, they're not like gigantic. I don't think they're as big as like petas, because but I don't think it's described very precisely in the canonical literature. But the way they behave and interact with humans seems to indicate that they're sort of at least on the same size level. Some of the petas are described as like being as big as a house or a tree or a mountain or something. But the yakas are not described as being like gigantic or towering in that sense. So presumably they're sort of human-ish sized. Maybe a little bigger, maybe a little smaller, but I expect they vary a lot because they're described as being quite different from each other in appearance a lot of the time. So probably there's a range, I suspect, sort of humanish ballpark. It's just my own guess, just from reading it, how I kind of envision it based on the descriptions of the stories. But I don't think there's a specific. I have not seen anywhere where it gives like a specific number, like yakas are this big and they weigh this much or anything. I've not seen anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, well then in that case, unless anybody has any further things they want to go over, we can invite Bhante Chandima back to do some of the closing. Oh, there we go. Oh, all right. We got some other people back too. Good. Actually, let me check this breakout room and see if anybody else is in there. No. Okay, good. Hello, Bhante. Good to see you again. I wanted to ask, because we talked about this a little bit, about what you think would be a good date to submit the project, because I think everyone has a pretty good idea how they would like to do it. But I don't know what would be an appropriate day to have the students hand that in. What do you think would be a good time?
I want to know the nature of the project. It's like a writing or a artwork.
Yeah, so I think we landed on the students can do some kind of artistic way of presenting their idea, but I want to give them the chance to do it in a way, like whichever way is their preferred art form. So like I think Owen, you talked about maybe a song, but you could also do a drawing or a story or a poem if you like to do it that way. I'm okay with leaving it open to all those different forms of expression.
So is it like they're gonna do it in their free time and they're gonna submit before a date, and you asking me a date for that? Or
Yeah, I think that's how I'd like to do it. Because if we were to say do it all like in class time, it wouldn't give the students very much. That would be like an hour or two. I feel like that's not a lot of time. It depending on what you're going to do. Maybe like if you're doing a song and you're really good, maybe you can come up with a song that quickly. But if you're writing a short story, I think it might take a little more time than that. So I want to give everybody enough time to do what they feel is a good job. So I think maybe they do it whenever they find time over the next month or something, however long you think is appropriate.
yeah, what are the things that they have in their mind about, is it about the classes that we had, the lessons, based on the lessons, or something that they do it from a scratch?
Well, I was thinking that they could draw inspiration from the material we cover in class, and then use whatever else, other resources or something that they want. But the idea is, I think a lot of this is going to come from imagination, right? That you guys would make something up based on what we've read, and that you would use your own kind of creativity to draw some being in another realm, or maybe draw an artistic depiction of all of samsara, or a short story about people visiting other beings and realms, or write a song about it, whatever you want. But yeah, what else do you guys have in mind for that? Is it sort of like
Yeah.
do you have any concrete ideas yet?
uh are you asking from the students?
Yeah,
Or?
I'm asking the students. Yeah.
I was gonna do like a drawing of some type of being from a playground.
Okay. All right. So like maybe some portraits or something of beings in other realms, portraits of petas or devas or something like that. I mean, you could draw animals. Technically, it's in the list. Animals and humans are on the list. So, I mean, if you're really just like I can't be inspired by it, or it's too hard to draw. I don't know what these yuccas is supposed to look like. I'll just draw people. I think that's fine. If you could like you want to write a story about what it is to like be a human in samsara, you can do that too. If you can just make sure to tie the Buddhist theme into it or work the elements in from the lessons, I think that's okay.
You can take the benefit of doubt as well.
Yes, yeah. So,
You've never seen a devil yakka, right? Hopefully.
right, yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, you can. I think it would be the most fun if I were in your shoes. I would probably pick one of the more exotic beings because it would just be more fun. But you don't have to. You could say draw. You could like if you wanted to draw animals, you could like draw or like write about animals. You could draw or write about animals and their condition and why it's difficult to be an animal and why it's hard to live that kind of existence or something like that. I think that's perfectly valid too. So you don't have to be confined to things that are in the supernatural sort of category. But it's just probably those are probably going to be the more fun ones. But it's up to you guys.
Students, what do you think about a date? I mean, a deadline, because we are going to have the school again, Dhamma school again on March 14th, right? So, what do you think, Mike? So, do you think we should take a month of time, because this is kind of creative work?
Yeah, I don't want to add like I don't like the idea of giving you guys a ton of homework in general, but it seems like this is probably the best way to do it. When is your March break moved to specifically? It's been moved to April, right?
Yeah,
Specifically, is it the beginning of April or when does it fall? Do you know?
I think second week of April.
Okay, so
Around then.
maybe if we find the next lesson that comes after your spring break, so that you can over spring break you could find a few hours here or there where you could like work on it. Well, how does that sound?
That sounds
Yeah,
good.
that sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. I don't like the idea of like making you work over spring break, but I figure you're probably not going anywhere. You're probably not going on vacation to Mexico or something with your family this year. So I think probably that's an okay time, right? Let me see. So then in that case, if it's a second week of April, so maybe, oh yeah, okay. So I see we have a lesson on the 11th where we talk about devas, and that's the last lesson on devas. And then we have on the 25th of April, we talk about Brahmas and the okay, and the realms beyond the devas. Okay, so then I think the 25th of April might be a good day because your spring break should be done by then. And we also have a lesson that day. So you could hand your projects in on the 25th. So that gives lots of time. That's 2 months from now. So that should be plenty of time to think about it and to find some time here or there to throw it together. Is everybody okay with the 25th of April?
Yeah, sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. We'll do that then. I'll make a note here on the schedule.
Ovini, can you hear me? I was thinking about this Dhamma school song. We always have a typical traditional someone singing the Dhamma school song. But one day, whenever you are free, I hope if you could sing this Dhamma school song and have a recording,
Okay.
right? I mean,
Mhm.
I don't think others will be not uncomfortable with that because this is kind of an old way of singing the Dhamma school song. And the Chattamanoka Gat, I think you may have to recite some, get familiar with the Pali words for that. But one day, I just give you the idea when
Okay.
you are more free. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Mike. So let's recite the Chattamanoka Gata then. Okay. See. Samkhya-muni Bhante Katha-kincho Mara-katha-bhagavate Samandhi Tam-supe Saranaptamo-pimi Gavi Nijana-suvati Kamma-masam Mapati-purvam Om-nam-paguni-sri-vatam Tam-mi-mi-nam-paguni Te-che-din Pam-pale-mahu Chatusu-su-chi-su Se-yu-di-su Te-che-kun Dhamma-tasasi Te-mi-mam Nat-te-mi. Okay, starting a new month from tomorrow, March. So, yeah, thank you, and please continue to take care of you.
We'll see you all in 2 weeks. Be
Yeah,
healthy.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Hamdu.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Hamdu, for the Sarana.
okay,
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Hamduni.
take care.